The Oura Ring is a better sleep tracker than Fitbit/Google, and all of these are a lot better than the much cheaper Mi Band, or that is at least what this super interesting scientific study claims. In this video, I want to discuss with you how the study tested this, what the results were, and what we can learn from this. We will also take a look at some of the limitations of the testing and in that way help you decide which sleep tracker is the best for you. The study I'm talking about is a recent study published in Sleep Health Journal of the National Sleep Foundation, which was published in December of 2023. Now, researchers conducted a detailed analysis to evaluate the performance of 5 wearable sleep stage trackers, including the Oura Ring, Fitbit and the Mi Band and a few others. Now, they tested this against the gold standard of sleep stage tracking, polysomnography. Now, it's actually important to know that Google owns Fitbit, and based on my testing, I believe that all new Google products use the same sleep stage tracking as Fitbit products, so they're basically comparable. In my testing, the Oura Ring turns out to be a pretty good sleep stage tracker, but so does Fitbit and Google. If you look at the overall performance, the Oura Ring might actually do slightly better than all Fitbit devices on average at least, but the difference isn't huge. The Mi Band from Xiaomi, on the other hand, is a very bad sleep stage tracker, at least in my hands, which means I would only use it for tracking my total time in bed and nothing more. However, my testing is just done on me, which is quite limiting. And this is exactly why this study you're going to learn about is so interesting, because they actually tested the performance of these wearables on 26 men and 34 women between 20 and 68 years old, so a much more diverse group of people. By the way, for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Rob and I'm a postdoctoral scientist specializing in biological data analysis. But okay, back to the results, and I want to start off by looking at the cheapest device in their testing, the Mi Band 7. And those results are displayed right here. Now on top are the sleep stages as recorded by the reference PSG device, and on the left are the sleep stages as recorded by the Mi Band 7. Now each column sums to 100%, meaning that we can see what percentage of each of the sleep stages according to the reference was predicted as each sleep stage by the Mi Band 7. And if they perfectly agree, all values on the diagonal should be 100%. Now I got these tables from the supplement of the study and they were rounded to full numbers, which means that it can happen that the full percentage is actually 99 or 101%, but overall it doesn't change any of the conclusions. Now, first of all, we see that about 46% of what the PSG device detected as being deep sleep was also detected as deep sleep by the Mi Band 7. And actually about the same amount was detected as being light sleep instead, so that's not that great. Now, it's not the absolute worst, but not good enough for my purposes, but let's take a look at the individual nights. Now, looking at the individual nights will help us understand that even better, and here you can see the first night I wanted to share with you. Now, we'll only look at 2 nights in this video, but you can find all of them as an attachment to this study. Now on top we have the sleep stages according to the PSG reference, with along the horizontal axis the clock time and the sleep stages on the vertical axis. And on the bottom there's a similar plot, but now for the Mi Band 7. Now this image was adapted from the study with the deep sleep marked in dark blue. Now as you can see, for this person there was generally an okay agreement in terms of deep sleep. However, already it's not that great. We see especially decent agreement here in the beginning, but towards the end it already gets a bit worse. And for this second example I wanted to share with you, things aren't as great. You can see that this person had a lot of awake moments, so these green markers right here. And because of that, she didn't have a lot of deep sleep. Especially in the beginning of the night, you would expect deep sleep, but it wasn't there for her. And the Mi Band did detect deep sleep there. So I suspect it might be pre-programmed to expect a lot of deep sleep, especially in the beginning of the night. And it will give you that no matter what. And that's what we see right here. And because how this person actually slept isn't like a normal night's sleep or like a good night's sleep, the Mi Band didn't perform very well. Light sleep agreement was okay-ish at 67%, with quite a bit of confusion with deep sleep and REM sleep actually at 15 and 11%. REM sleep agreement was really bad at about 22%, so only 22% of what the PSG device detected as REM sleep was also detected as REM sleep by the Mi Band 7. More of it was actually detected as being light sleep instead at 69%. So this is even a higher percentage than the 67% we had for light sleep. Now this first person right here actually had an unexpected REM sleep pattern. He only had some REM sleep right here in the middle and some near the end, and you don't clearly see his sleep cycles. He also had quite some awake moments, especially near the end of the night. And you can see there's almost no agreement between the Mi Band and the PSG device when it comes to REM sleep. You can see none of it was detected right here and only a little bit right here, and a lot of extra REM sleep was detected here in the beginning of the night. And also for this second person, we don't really see a good REM sleep agreement. It's a bit better than before, but the Mi Band tends to detect a lot of extra REM sleep, and it also doesn't fully match the position. But we can see that this person has somewhat more logical sleep cycles, so we could see 1, 2, 3 sleep cycles right here. So each sleep cycle starts with light sleep and deep sleep marked in blue and ends in REM sleep marked in purple, but you wouldn't be able to see any of those based on the data from the Mi Band. Awake time agreement also was pretty bad at 33%, and more of what the PSG device said was awake time was detected as being a light sleep instead at 53%. So overall, not a very good performance. And awake time is marked in green right here. And as you can see, the PSG device clearly detected awake moments for this person, and none of them were detected by the Mi Band. Basically, all of it or most of it was detected as being light sleep instead, but even some other stages like REM sleep as well. And that's more or less also what we see for this second person. She had quite some awake moments, also right here, some longer ones, and none of them were detected by the Mi Band. So I really would only use the Mi Band for detecting when you fall asleep and when you wake up and nothing else. So that honestly doesn't look too good for the Mi Band 7, and it doesn't bode well for Xiaomi sleep tracking in general. In my testing, a lot of the Chinese companies tend to perform poorly when it comes to sleep stage tracking, and the Mi Band 7 in this study is no exception. I somehow suspect that Xiaomi just hasn't invested a ton of money and effort in collecting a good data set of their sleep tracking performance with both PSG and their devices, which is what is basically needed to get a good sleep stage tracking algorithm. Now, before getting to the next device, I've actually been talking a lot about this reference called PSG, but what is this? Well, PSG stands for polysomnography, which is the gold standard in sleep stage tracking. What you basically do is you attach a bunch of electrodes to someone during the night to measure their brain waves, eye movements, muscle movements, and heart rate. Now, based on all of this, you can then get an accurate picture of their sleep stages, and this is exactly what they did in this study. Now, let's now move on to the next device in terms of price, the Fitbit watch, in this case, the Fitbit Sense. As I mentioned before, I think that all newer Fitbit and Google devices likely use the same algorithm, and in this study, they used the Fitbit Sense, one of Fitbit's higher-end watches. Be aware though, this is the previous generation watch, though not much changed since then. And for Fitbit, we generally see better results, as you can see right here. However, deep sleep isn't the best, with just over half of what was deep sleep according to the PSG device also being detected as deep sleep by the Fitbit Sense. A lot of it was also detected as being a light sleep instead at about 41%. But let's again take a look at the individual nights. Now again, looking at deep sleep, marked here in dark blue, we see a decent agreement for the Fitbit when it comes to deep sleep for this night at least. We see that most of the deep sleep here matches, though not enough is detected right here. Also not enough is detected right here. Then again, right here, a bit too much is detected, and it also detects some extra deep sleep right here near the end of the night. Though it seemed that right here, the stages couldn't be scored, so I'm not sure what was going on right there. Still, overall, this looks a bit better than what we saw for the Xiaomi Mi Band. And for this second person, which had very little deep sleep, so quite poor sleep quality for this night, we do see there's a better agreement compared to what we saw for the Mi Band 7 as well. So the small bit of deep sleep right here measured by the reference was also detected by the Fitbit, and the same goes for this part right here, that this third segment wasn't detected, and it also detected a bit of extra deep sleep right here near the end of the night, which is very unlikely, but overall it doesn't look too bad. Now, a light sleep agreement is also a bit better than what we saw for the Mi Band at about 77%, and confusion could be with any of the other sleep stages, so deep, REM, and awake. REM sleep agreement is definitely better than we saw for the Mi Band. The agreement is now 68%, so 68% of what the PSG device detected as being REM sleep was also detected as REM sleep by the Fitbit Sense, and most confusion in this case was with light sleep at 27%. Now, REM sleep detection for this first person actually looks quite good given how little REM sleep he actually had. So in the middle, this matches almost perfectly, so that's really good. Near the end, it struggles a bit more, so it detected some extra REM sleep right here and right here, though this segment still matches okay. Given the complexity of this night, I'm not disappointed. And for this second night, the REM sleep agreement is even better. So there's quite good agreement for this first segment. Also, the second segment isn't too bad. There's a bit more detected. And this third segment is a bit broken up. But overall, we would be able to see the sleep cycles based on just the data from the Fitbit. So that's good. Now, awake time agreement has a similar percentage compared to what we saw for REM sleep, so also 68%. And again, most confusion is with light sleep at 25%. And this makes sense as light sleep is the closest sleep stage to being awake. For this first night right here, we actually see quite good agreement for awake time detection is marked in green. It's not perfect by any means, but better than I expected. Many of the segments match quite well. Near the end it doesn't match quite as well, but here also the PSG device struggled a bit. But overall for this night, not disappointing. Now the agreement for this second person might be slightly worse, especially because in the beginning of the night she was fully awake for quite a bit and the Fitbit already detected some light sleep. But still, overall, I'm not that disappointed. It's quite difficult to score nights like this based on just movement, heart rate and things that the Fitbit can measure, and it's doing a pretty good job. So the results for Fitbit already look a lot better than those for Xiaomi, and this is something I could personally work with in terms of sleep stage tracking. Now, there are also much cheaper Fitbit devices out there that will likely give you the same quality of sleep stage tracking, so it can be relatively affordable to get a decent level of sleep stage tracking quality. Now, Fitbit does require a subscription for some of the more premium metrics, but the sleep stage tracking is still free, at least when I last tested it. The same cannot be said for the next device I want to look at though, the Oura Ring. Oura is actually the health tracker I personally use most on a daily basis combined with the Whoop strap. However, both of these require a subscription to use them, which honestly isn't something everybody wants to pay for or potentially can even not afford. Now, I should also mention that I did agree to add an Oura affiliate links to my review last year after they released the improved sleep stage tracking algorithm with the Oura Generation 3, which was the first time Oura did very well in my testing. So just wanted to mention that for full disclosure. However, did the Oura Ring Generation 3, the most expensive device I'm going to mention today, do well in the scientific study? Well, let's find out. But first, a quick side note. If you're interested in the latest updates on the wearables I'm testing, I'm planning to start back up with my newsletter and posting more off-the-cuff things on my Instagram and my YouTube Shorts channel. So if you're interested in any of those are linked below. Also, I'm trying to become part of the first people who receive watches to review from companies like Garmin, Samsung, and Apple. And if you want to help me make that happen, it would really help if you like, subscribe, and or comment. But of course, this is totally up to you. Now, enough self-promotion. Let's take a look at the results for the Oura Ring Generation 3. And again, a similar overview to before, but now for the Oura Ring, and this is the best one we've seen so far. So we can see a decent deep sleep agreement at 74%. So 74% of what was detected as deep sleep by the PSG device was also detected as deep sleep by the Oura Ring, and most confusion was with light sleep. And again, it's interesting to look at the individual nights. Now, in terms of deep sleep agreement marked in dark blue here, the PSG device on top and the Oura Ring on the bottom match pretty well. In the beginning here, I think the Fitbit might have done slightly better, but overall it looks to perform about the same as the Fitbit for this night. Interestingly though, for this second participant, the Oura Ring struggled a lot more for deep sleep, as you can see marked in dark blue. Most of the deep sleep detected by the PSG device is detected by the Oura Ring, so that's good, but a lot of extra deep sleep is detected by the Oura Ring, especially here in the beginning, and that's difficult to see in that confusion matrix we were just looking at. So what we can see for this night, and it's likely to happen for some other nights, is that the Oura Ring tends to detect too much deep sleep, especially for this poor night of sleep. Light sleep agreement was similar to deep sleep agreement at 76%, and most confusion was with deep sleep at 10%. So quite a bit of what was light sleep according to the PSG device was detected as deep sleep instead, but also the other way around. But there was also some confusion with the other sleep stages. REM sleep agreement was the best out of all of them at 82%, with most confusion being with light sleep. But let's again take a look at those individual nights. Now, REM sleep detection is pretty okay for the Oura Ring for this night, so most of what was REM sleep according to the PSG device was also detected as REM sleep by the Oura Ring, but some extra was again detected, some right here, and also these segments lasted a bit longer. And for this second night, we also see a pretty decent agreement, especially the first two segments match really well. Only for this third segment right here, the duration was a bit too short, but also for the Oura Ring, we would be able to see our sleep cycles. Awake time detection is pretty decent at 74%, and in my experience, Oura is generally pretty good at detecting those shorter awake moments that many other devices don't detect. And most confusion is again with light sleep at about 18%, so what we expect because light sleep is the closest to being awake. Now, awake time detection was also pretty good according to the Oura Ring. I would say to a similar caliber as the Fitbit. Quite a bit of these short awake moments are detected and also some of the longer ones. And for the second night, we see more or less the same thing, though it does seem that the Oura Ring tends to detect a bit less awake time than the PSG device and also than the Fitbit. So actually, somewhat to my surprise, for these two more or less randomly selected nights, the Fitbit actually seems to do a bit better than the Oura Ring, whereas the confusion matrix seems to indicate that the Oura Ring does a bit better than the Fitbit. Now, this is likely partially due to chance, partially due to the type of metrics I use in my analysis, but it also highlights some of the individual variability, where some devices might perform better on some people than on others. And in mentioning those confusion matrices, here you can see all of them side by side, just to give you a quick comparison. Now looking at them side by side, overall it does give the impression that the Oura Ring does slightly better than the Fitbit, though they're not that far apart, but especially the Mi Band just isn't great. So if you want to track your sleep stages, both the Oura Ring and a Fitbit are going to do a decent job. Both have their pros and cons. I like the user interface of the Oura Ring, but the Fitbit is cheaper, so it's really up to you. So the Oura Ring was actually the best performer overall in this study out of the 3 devices we discussed in this video. But how do the results from this study compare to my testing? Well, let's take a look. Now this graph right here shows you an overview of the agreement of different watches and wearables with different reference devices. Along the horizontal axis we have the average agreement over the individual sleep stages, and on the vertical axis we have the agreement of the worst sleep stage. Now the better the agreement, the more to the top right the device is. Now this overview is slightly complicated because I use different reference devices. Those not marked in any color were compared against the Dream 2 EEG headband, which used to be my reference, but then Dream went bankrupt. The devices marked in green were tested against the Z-Max EEG device, and the devices marked in purple were tested against polysomnography by me. And the results from the study we discussed today are marked in orange. And as you can see, overall the patterns are similar to what we saw in my testing. So the Mi Band 7 right here is very close to the Mi Band 8 and the Mi Band 6 in my testing, so it doesn't look very good. The Fitbit Sense from the study marked here in orange is also close to other Fitbit devices based on my testing, like the Fitbit Sense, the Fitbit Sense 2, the Fitbit Charge 5, and other Fitbit devices and Google devices. Now the Oura Ring 3 is a slight outlier in that sense compared to my testing. So here you can see how 2 Oura Rings performed on me. So in terms of overall performance, it's mostly similar. I would say I had a 73-74% overall agreement, whereas in this study, the overall agreement is slightly higher at 76%, but overall actually very similar. It's mostly in terms of the worst sleep stage that is different. For me, the worst sleep stage was about 55-ish%, whereas in this study, this was much higher at about 74%, I believe. Still, the overall ordering is more or less the same, though the spacing might be slightly different. The Oura Ring is doing better than the Fitbit Sense, and they are both doing a lot better than the Mi Band 7. And if you look at other devices that are doing quite well but weren't tested in this study, we have, for instance, the Apple Watch, which is generally one of the best sleep trackers out there, at least on me. Also, the Nuco app is really good, but it isn't available everywhere it seems yet, and also quite expensive. Other good devices include, for instance, the H-Sleep Pod 3, but this is also very expensive, so really think about if you actually need this. And in general, we can see all Fitbit devices are more or less in the same area, and I suspect they actually perform more or less the same. If you want to get a cheaper device, for instance, the Fitbit Inspire 3 isn't that expensive anymore, but I think even a really old device, like for instance the Fitbit Charge 2, would still do rather well. I didn't recently test it, but I tested it against polysomnography in the past, and it did quite well, and this was already some years ago. Now, Whoop straps are also doing quite okay in terms of sleep stage tracking, though not as good as Oura Rings and Apple Watches, and potentially even a bit worse than some Fitbit devices at least. Though personally, I do use a Whoop strap every day, as it's a good compromise between sports and health. And Garmin devices, at least some of them and the newer ones, aren't terrible either. Now, personally, I don't use Garmin devices for sleep per se, but I actually started using Garmin devices a lot more for sports, especially for running. I never really used to use Garmin devices that much, but now that I started running, I really appreciate how you can connect different sensors to your Garmin devices. So I'm also learning as I'm testing these devices that it's not just about performance, but also about the general ecosystem, and it really varies from person to person what they find important. Oh, and there were actually 2 more devices in this study. One is really not that interesting, it did really poorly and it's not something you could buy. But the second one is interesting. There's one device that actually outperforms all others, and that's the Dream 2 EEG headband. This is an EEG headband that does much of the same thing as the reference PSG device, but at a smaller scale. It also measures things like brain waves and eye movement. Now, the Dream 2 outperformed all others, especially on nights with atypical sleep and poor sleep quality. The nights with poor sleep quality seem to be the hardest for devices like the Oura Ring and the Fitbit to track accurately. However, unfortunately, Dream no longer makes devices for the consumer market and only focuses on scientific research, so you cannot get one yourself. And I speak from personal experience. I actually own 3 Dream 2 EEG headbands, and these basically became expensive paperweights the moment that Dream went bankrupt and was taken over by a company called Beacon Biosignals, which decided they would shut down all servers for consumers. Which I somehow get in terms of business decisions, but if anybody out there has any idea of how to somehow connect an app to the Dream 2 EEG headband that many of us still own, please let me know and I'll connect you to a small community of people that will be very grateful for your help. But okay, back to the wearables you can actually still buy. What does all this mean in terms of the device you should get? Well, the most suitable device for you depends on your specific needs and situation. Fitbit devices are generally already quite good and one of the cheaper options out there that still provide decent quality sleep stage tracking. I personally actually used a Fitbit Charge 2 myself for many years, and this did the job most nights for me. Now, you won't get all metrics without a premium Fitbit subscription, but the most important ones are there for free. Also, I should mention Fitbit doesn't have the best build quality out there. Many of my Fitbits have broken and have gotten replacements, but just be aware. If you have the money to spend, an Oura Ring will likely give you slightly better performance than Fitbit, and Oura also has a great app which provides you with the best health overview in my opinion, which is why it's one of the devices I've used myself for many years now. I did add an affiliate link below, but I generally actually recommend first searching for a discount link online, since this is generally a better deal. Also, I did notice that in this study they did get some funding from Oura, which I suspect was just Oura providing some devices for free. They do actually say that Oura did not influence the design of the study analysis or its interpretation in any way. Also, keep in mind that certain environmental and personal factors can influence the accuracy of these trackers on you specifically. Things like your sleeping environment, your blood flow, and personal sleep patterns may alter the performance of these wearables. Also, there are many different metrics that can be used to evaluate the performance of these wearables, and I chose to look at it in one particular way. Also, check out my friend's Max blog below here where he does a detailed review of the Oura Ring. Now, if you do decide to get a Fitbit, a Whoop strap, an Oura Ring, another device, or anything at all on Amazon for that matter, even something as small as toilet paper, want to potentially save some money and at the same time support the channel, there are different affiliate and non-affiliate links in the description below. They do not cost you any extra and some even provide a discount. Now, I know that choosing the right wearable for sleep but also heart rate isn't easy, but armed with science, I hope that you're a bit more ready to make an informed decision. I'm also curious about your experiences, so please share those in the comments below. And as always, I hope that you enjoyed this deep dive. If you did, it helps me make more scientifically backed goodness like this if you like, share and subscribe. Now, given that you watched this entire video on sleep tracking, you might also be interested in the devices I use myself on a daily basis for better sleep, which you can find right here in this video. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching and catch you in the next video.